Welcome once again. I'm Anthony Maina Jovona, and today we are going to talk about Africa, and we are going to talk to Africa and her people, and also the rest of the developing world, so that they can tap the potential that they have and work out a way of overcoming the challenges that face them and become great nations that will also contribute meaningfully to the world and also have a say in the world, in politics and in economics and everything that happens in the world. And as we talk about Africa, we are going to look at some verses in the Bible. And one of the verses that we are going to read is in Proverbs chapter 22 and verse 7. Now it says, "The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender." Now we understand that one of the challenges that face the developing world, and especially Africa, is huge debts. And as we have seen, the rich rule over the poor. The poor has no voice when it comes to most of the decisions that have to be made in the world. And we understand that Africa has borne the brunt of a system that has impoverished her time and time again, and a leadership that does not recognize the people and the potential they have. And we have sunk into debts that have made us not be able to express ourselves and not be able to achieve our potential, even though Africa has for a long time been said to be the cradle of mankind and all such things, but we realize Africa has not attained her full potential despite the resources that Africa has. Africa is a blessed nation, but we realize we have not been able to control our resources. We have not been able to help our people to accomplish their full potential because we have had policies that are drafted for us, because as we have seen, the rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is a servant to the lender. We have become servants because we have to pay our debts and we have to follow the policies of our lenders. Otherwise, they are not going to support our development strategies. They are not going to support whatever our policies and everything that we do. And we find Africa continues to suffer because of the things that she sank herself into. But there is hope for Africa if each one of us can stand and understand that we have something that we can offer. We have something that can make us great. The resources that we have are making the rest of the world richer. We have gold, we have diamond, we have the best climate we can say in the world. And if we tap into the resources that we have as a nation, if we tap into the resources, the human resource that we have, the natural resources, and we work hard, we can make Africa overcome its debts and rise to the position where she has been called to be, and even rule the rest of the world. There is a verse I want us to read from the book of 2 Kings in chapter 4, and we see how Africa can liberate herself from the things that have made her become poor and poor and poor. Number one, there is this widow who was visited by Elisha, and there are several things I want us to understand from this widow concerning how we can settle our debts and liberate ourselves from being slaves to the people who have rent us. I understand many of the nations in Africa are defaulting on their debts, and what that means is that they are giving over control to others. and these debts continue to accumulate, and as such, we are losing a lot, and our people are suffering. Now, we have this widow in 2 Kings chapter 4. I'll read the verses, then we are going to look at some of the strategies we can use as nations in Africa and the rest of the developing world to overcome the servanthood that we've been praising to, and we can come up with our own policies that will help us to grow as nations and to overcome the challenges that we are facing, like poverty, unemployment, hunger, and disease. Now, the verse is 2 Kings chapter 4 and verse 10, verse 1 to 7. Now, there cried a certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophets unto Elisha, saying, Your servant, my husband, is dead, and you know that your servant did fear the Lord, and the creditor has come to take unto him my 2 sons to be slaves. We read from Proverbs that the lender, the borrower is a servant to the lender. Here there is a woman, a widow, who cries unto Elisha, saying that the creditor wants to take unto him her sons. And Africa's sons and have been taken to become slaves to the lender because their knowledge, their skills cannot be used in Africa because of death. So we are becoming slaves. Our wisdom, our knowledge, and our skills are being used to build others, yet we are not able to build ourselves. So this woman cried unto Elisha and told him that the creditor has come and wants to take my sons to become slaves unto him. When you have a debt, you have no choice. You have to follow whatever the creditor tells you. Whatever policy they make for you, you have to follow them because you have no power over them. So the woman cried unto Elisha, and Elisha said unto her, What shall I do for you? Tell me, what have you in the house? Elisha asked the woman, and Africa is crying because of her debt, and she is asking, my sons are becoming slaves, my resources are being taken away. Now, maybe the question we should ask ourselves, what can I do for you? This is a question that is being asked. What can I do? What shall I do for you? What do you have in the house? One thing we need to understand as Africa and the nations that are facing death is that we have to use whatever we have to overcome the challenges that we have. To pay our debts, we have to ask ourselves, what do we have? What resources do we have in our house? Because that is the first place we have to start with whatever we have. We should not look outside and ask how much, who else is willing to lend us, but we should ask ourselves, what do we have in the house? Because when we understand we have something that we can use to overcome our debts, we have something we can use to overcome the challenges that we have, that will be the first moment of liberating ourselves. So Elisha asked the woman, what do you have in your house? Africa, what do you have in your house? I would answer, we have resources. We have good and hardworking people. We have good climate. There is so much that we have that we can use to liberate ourselves from the slavery that we have sunk into because of our debts. So the woman said, and she said, your handmaid has not anything in the house except a pot of oil. You see, sometimes we despise ourselves, thinking that we are so limited because we look at what we have and it looks so little compared to what others have. When you look at our technology, it may not be advanced as the developing world. When you look at our systems, they may not be as developed as those of the developed world. And we say we have nothing except, that which we have, the except the resources, the gold. That is what we have. The poor widow said, I have a pot of oil in my house. Africa, we can answer this by saying we have skilled manpower, we have great people, we have people who can do much, who are willing to work to make us overcome our debts. We have resources, natural resources, we have good climate, we have good weather, and we can use these things to overcome the debt. So the woman said, I have a pot of oil in my house. Then he said, go borrow you vessels outside of all your neighbors, even empty vessels, borrow not a few. Now, number one, we've seen we have to use the resources that we have. Whatever we have, we use it. Then number two, we have to look for friendly people who are willing to support us to grow, not people who are going to make us more slaves than we already are, but people who are going to be good unto us. And the next strategy is to look for favorable people who are going to help us overcome our challenges. Even when they led to us, they are not leading us to impoverish us, but they are helping us to overcome our challenges, and we have to look for these people. So Eliza told the woman, go and look from your neighbors and borrow vessels from them. These were vessels not to come and use for her own needs, but for investment. So even as we borrow from our neighbors or from those who are favorable unto us, we need to understand that we need to bring it to such a point that whatever we are getting, we are going to invest it so that we can accumulate enough to pay our debts and overcome the slavery that we've been put into by our creditors. So Elijah told the woman to go and borrow vessels from the neighbors. So we have to look for friendly people, friendly nations that are going to support us, friendly nations that are going to keep us moving to that place where we'll be able to stand on our feet, to be able to tap into our resources, to tap into the treasures that we have, and become great nations that are going to be good to her people and make the people understand that we are in Africa to build Africa. We are in Africa to make Africa great and to grow her and to make it one of the most progressive continents in the world. And we are despised because we have not been able to overcome the challenges that we faced, from colonialism. We have not been able to rise to that position where we can say we are moving towards now becoming borrowers to lenders, and we can reach that point if we work very hard. So the next thing, she told Eliza told the woman, he told the woman, after borrowing from the friendly neighbors, and when you come in, you shall shut the door upon you and upon your sons, and shall pour out into all those vessels, and you shall set aside that which is full. Now, number one thing we need to realize, we have to come up with our own policies if we are going to liberate ourselves from the crutches that are holding us and dragging us backward. This woman was told to shut her doors, meaning she had to do whatever she was doing in complete confidence and in secrecy, so that whatever she was doing will not be open to others. She had to come with her own policies. So she and her sons were to work out. After they had borrowed the vessels, they used those vessels to build something that was going to help them. So they had to start themselves in. And Africa needs to understand, unless she comes with her own policies to develop herself, she's going to continue to be poor, because no one is going to let her overcome the challenge of debt, because that is the only way the rich can control. The lender, the borrower is a slave to the lender. There is no way the leader is going to cede control over you unless you make a decision and say, I'm going to work out my own problems and rise to that position where I'm able to pay all my debts and become free again. Africa needs to free herself from debts by coming up with her own policies that are not designed by the leaders, by those people who are controlling her, but policies that are made by herself and her sons, so that she is able to set aside a treasure that is going to overcome her challenges. So this woman was told to put aside whatever was full. Number one, we need to understand we cannot continue wasting whatever we are getting. Wastage is one of the problems that is facing Africa. We can accumulate, but wastage has made us to not be able to overcome our challenges and to pay our debts. But if we can set aside that which is full, if we can invest and say, whatever we invest, we are going to use it to build and to make Africa stand on her feet, then we can become a great nation and we'll be able to overcome our debts. But whatever we have done is that we waste so much. If you look at our leaders, they spend most of their money in things that do not help Africa. We get much, but we use it for things that are not necessary. We find that we'll be sending delegations of 1,000 men to go and study something that we can follow from here. And we know we are trying to adopt policies that are not even ours, that are not going to work for us, that are designed by the leader. And in the end, we end up becoming poorer and poorer. But if we can decide and say we are not going to waste anymore, we are not going to use that which we have for, we are not going to use what we have for pleasure, we are not going to use what we have for luxury, then we can overcome and, we can amass enough that is going to help us to rise and pay off our debts and start building ourselves. We don't need somebody to come and lend to us so that we can build roads. We don't need somebody to come and lend to us so that we can build hospitals. We don't need somebody to come and lend to us so that we can build schools. I believe we have the potential to make policies that are going to help Africa overcome her debt. So she was to set aside what was full. Then he told her. So the woman did what Eliza told her. So she went from him and shut the door upon her and upon her sons, who brought the vessels to her, and she poured out. And it came to pass, when the vessels were full, that she said unto her son, Bring me yet a vessel. And he said unto her, There is not a vessel more. And the oil stopped flowing. Now we understand that even as we try to build, there is something we need to understand. We have to overcome greed. Because the more greedy we are, the more we are going to waste the resources that we have. But we have to understand that even the greatest investment can come to a peak where it is stopped. So we need to understand and ask ourselves, if whatever we are doing stops giving us anymore, what else can we do? How far are we going to, how else are we going to manage whatever we are doing to bring it to that position where it is going to help us? Because you may invest, but some investments do not last a lifetime. So we have to keep on building something that is going to last for generations and to build up on something that is going to last. So we realize the oil stopped flowing when there were no more vessels. So when the resources are depleted, what else can we do? And we realize Africa's resources are not even being used to develop Africa. They are being used to develop other nations. So what would happen to us if this woman had given her oil out to be used by others so that they can pay off their debts? What would have become of her? We need to understand that the resources that we have will one day be depleted. What will happen to us? we have seen the climate change and how it is affecting Africa. What will happen to Africa if she is not able to use the resources that she has right now? So we need to understand as a nation that resources can be depleted, but we need to have done something that will cushion us when that time comes. So the woman realized the oil had stopped flowing. Then she came and told the man of God, and he said, "Go, sell the oil and pay your debt." You see, the investment that she made was for her to be able to overcome the challenge of her debt. So Africa need to realize whatever I'm doing, I have to pay my debts first, because when I've paid my debts, I'll have liberated myself from the slavery that has been affecting me. So the man of God told the woman to go and sell and pay her debt, and you and your children shall live from the rest. So from the abundance, from the excess of what you have invested, from the excess of what we invest as a nation, from the excess what we invest as a continent, we'll be able to live of it. We'll be able to build now our infrastructure. Will be able to build systems that are going to sustain us and that are not going, and we can say from now on, we are not going to become slaves anymore. We are not going to allow ourselves to be enslaved by another man because we have resources. Can we invest in those resources and overcome the challenges that we have? I'm talking to Africa and everybody that is living in Africa. And when you talk to Africa, I'm also addressing other nations that are like us, the developing nations. We need to understand that the only way we can overcome the challenges that we have is, one, we know we have resources that we can use. We stop despising ourselves. Then we ask ourselves, how can we use those resources to amass something that is going to help us overcome our debts? The woman went to friendly neighbors and borrowed vessels which she used to pour oil into, the oil which she sold to others, and that helped her to pay off her debts. So Africa need to understand that who can we work with that will help us overcome our challenge? Then are we going to stop being wasteful? Are we going to end the corruption that has bedeviled our nations? And then finally, let us use our investments to pay off our debts and live with whatever will remain from us, and we can build better technologies, we can build better roads, we can build better hospitals, we can come up with good education systems that are going to help our people to grow even more and stop seeking from what we call greener pastures from outside. May God bless you, and let us continue defending Africa. As I said earlier, I'm a writer and I'm trying to look into issues that are going to help Africa to grow. And one of the books I've written is Stolen Dream. We realize Africa and many nations had their dreams stolen because people came into their country and, they took away their resources. But it is time for Africa to rediscover herself and rediscover her dream. Have a nice evening and be blessed.